Hi, I'm Ernie.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Welcome back, nerds. Great to have you. Today, we're talking about cutting expenses. Ben and I are going to go back and forth and talk about how we've cut some expenses from the budget. Now, I think it's important to start this off by saying you don't have to cut expenses when you start budgeting, right, Ben?
Yeah. I think a lot of people think of those two words, budget and cutting back, are connected, but people say like, "Oh, I'm on a budget, I can't do that," or whatever. But that's not what budgeting is about. It's not necessarily about cutting expenses. It's just about finding out what your priorities are and making sure your money flows that way. But very often when people start a budget, they realize, "Oh, I've been spending that much on eating out or that much on whatever," and they realize I actually have higher priorities, and that might lead them to cut spending. So definitely don't feel like you have to.
Right, but all of a sudden with that budget, your awareness increases, and then it's oh crap, I'm spending this much on that. Do I really want to do that?
Right.
And sometimes the answer is
thing.
yes, absolutely. But then sometimes it's, let's cut this out and, try
I'm going to talk about
money.
some ways that I've cut expenses and then undid that because I realized I didn't want to spend less on that. So we'll talk about that. But
okay.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Ernie? Tell us about some ways, look back into your life and your budgeting history and tell us about some ways that you've cut back, and I'll interject where I can.
Okay, this was actually really funny to think back about cutting expenses. And actually, when I first pulled up this topic in Notion, that's the tool we use to keep track of all of our budget nerd ideas, I saw a little note in there that this idea to talk about cutting expenses came to me while I was listening to Driver's License on the radio, that Olivia Rodrigo song.
Oh, okay.
I love the song, and I have no idea what I was thinking about while listening to that song or why I was thinking about budgeting. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Well, you're always thinking about budgeting. Right?
Maybe that's what it is. It was a bizarre revelation, and here's this budget nerd idea. Anyways, as I was thinking through...
I got the thing pulled up right now, and it was July 21 you came up with this idea, and you wrote that down.
And I just remember Ashley saying, I want you to do this topic because I want to hear the Olivia Rodrigo story. But
yeah, okay.
Sorry, Ashley, there's no story. I can't remember. This was months ago.
It was too long. Good story, Ernie. Well done.
Cool.
I forgot. I love it.
But it was fun to think back to the early budgeting days and all the ways that I have cut expenses, because the start of my budgeting journey was I was in the middle of paying down debt, right? So I was trying to free up as much cash as possible to get rid of that debt as fast as I could. And so I was always thinking of new ways to cut expenses. So I'll just kind of go through the list, and then we'll just kind of riff off of each other here. This is probably the most ridiculous. We have this local gas station in town that sends out all of these $1 free gas coupons. You get like 4 at a time, and they come out probably every 2 months or something like that. But anyways, I would plan my routes on my errands around these gas stations and use multiple, like 3 at a time, because you could only use 1 at one particular gas station. So I would fill up with like $8 of gas, get $1 off, go to the next station, another $8, and just kind of do that. Was it worth my time? Absolutely not. But there was something really fun about it. I'm only saving $3. It really didn't move the needle in terms of saving money. But like I said, it was fun because I had turned cutting expenses, saving money into this game. And my wife thought I was crazy, but I just loved doing that every Saturday. And so
I love that. It makes me think of, I was in the car with my mom recently, and my kids were in the back, and we were driving home from somewhere, and she needed to get gas, and we went into the Kroger gas station. She's like, we passed like 5 gas stations, and I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? And she's like, I have to go to the Kroger gas station. This is how they get you, right? because she has a little like thing on her card. And I was like, yeah, whatever. This isn't going to be worth it. And she came back in. She's like, I got 80 cents off per gallon. And I was like, what? it's like for real. I mean, you have to spend at the store to like get the points. I don't know how it works. Anyway,
yes,
it's like serious business. So that was interesting. So yeah, there's things you can do there for sure.
And I had to make sure because with that coupon, I always had to go into the store. Right. And that's, I think, what they want. They want you to, then pick up a soda, pick up a bag of chips, whatever the case may be. And I'm used to just paying at the pump. So I always made sure I'm going in there and I'm only buying gas and not buying anything else.
They're trying to get you inside.
Yeah,
but a disciplined budget nerd like you can just...
I did it.
You can just turn your eyes away from all the pennies and all the soda.
I don't do that anymore. That was just a season for me. But I look back at it and... I mean, I cringe because it was pathetic, but I also smile because I loved that season.
I love it. That's sweet. What else, Ernie? I love that one.
Canceled services. I think that's usually a go-to right away. Like, what am I using that I can just get rid, or what am I using that I don't want anymore, or what am I not using that I'm actually still paying for? We hear that all the time, right? People start keeping a budget and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize I had this subscription, whatever. And so you start canceling those. And I think for us, it was right away we canceled cable. We had a very basic cable plan, but huge. Right there we freed up like $15 a month.
I don't understand cable anymore. Like, I mean, all the streaming services kind of came out when I was in college, or Netflix was really starting when I was in college. And so I came out of college and I didn't ever do the cable thing. Okay. And now I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, it's the worst. I'll tell you a little side tangent here. I actually did get cable because there was a weird deal with my internet company. Yeah. Where if I got the cable, you ever do this? If you get the cable, I wanted faster internet. I got the cable and the fast internet bundled, and it was cheaper than just getting the internet by itself.
Yep.
I guess they get kickbacks or something. And so I did that, but it was terrible. Like, the aspect ratio was all messed up. There were commercials. It was really low quality. So it just had a cable box sitting in my house, never used it. Eventually got a different deal and sent that back.
Well, and generally that's a promotional rate, right? Then after a year or 2 years, it jacks it up. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and every couple of years you got to call the cable company and go through that.
Well, speaking about cutting expenses and cable, we got one streaming service. We started with Netflix, and then slowly we've been adding all these others. And now I'm looking at that price thinking, it might just be cheaper to cut those all and go back to cable.
Oh no. That's true. It's just going round and around, isn't it? But I think a lot of this is just about like paying attention to like subscriptions you have, services you have, promotional prices that go up and they're hoping you won't notice, things like that,
And I think it's also worth saying that, at least for me, I didn't do all these things at once.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there were a number of them that I was doing simultaneously, but it was too overwhelming to like try to always be fully maximizing and optimizing the budget. So I just kind of did it in phases, and that worked for me. And this one actually came later on. Once the cash flow situation improved for me, I changed the payment frequency on my life insurance policy and my wife's life insurance policy because we were paying monthly. And if I had switched it to every 6 months, then I would save, I don't know, like $10 a month or something like that. So I'm like, oh, that's worth it. And I had the cash, so I just made that change.
That is one of my favorite things. It just brings me such joy to pay things annually when I don't have to. Yeah. Because you get it cheaper most of the time. But I think, I don't know, I feel like it's just a signal like, hey, I'm budgeting, I can handle this. And it's just a reminder like, hey, I'm secure enough to be able to handle doing it this way. And it just makes me heart happy, actually. I did that with a few other insurance bills recently. I switched it from monthly to yearly, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I think the only one I was able to do that with was the life insurance. And now my only other option is if I want, I can go from 6 months to paying it every year and save even a little bit more. So I don't know. I'll figure that out in a little bit, but
that'll be the next step. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about, it's funny. Sometimes I'm willing to give up cash on hand in order to have more cash flow. You know what I mean? Because like the monthly amount, because when you're budgeting, if you pay annually, it doesn't matter. You're paying monthly because you do the true expense thing and you set money aside for it every month.
Yep.
And so if the monthly amount is lower, hey, that's like $4 or $5, $10 that I can get back into my budget and do something else with it. And I might be willing to pay, I might be able to pay up front $100 now to get that $10 a month back.
Yes.
So,
and usually that's the tricky part, is coming up with the cash up front. And that's why for me, it wasn't until I got a little bit further along in that journey where I had some excess cash, I could reprioritize that towards, changing that frequency.
Yeah, love it.
All right. Another way to cut expenses is to shop around. So like with cell phone providers, service providers there. And this is something we did very early on in our budgeting days. We just basically found the cheapest, or I should say one of the cheapest cell phone plans. And they also included some of the cheapest cell phones in the world. So, but that was almost like a badge of honor, right? Like I have this super crappy phone with this really spotty network, but I'm like, you know what? I'm paying, what was it? It might have been like $25 a month or $20 a month. I mean, it was dirt cheap. Yeah. And my wife and I were both on this plan, and I just kind of loved it. Like I said, badge of honor. I'm a budget nerd here. I'm cutting my expenses.
There's a bit of pride in having a terrible phone or a terrible car or something. There's something there. I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, and you could probably do that, with insurance, right? People probably shop around for insurance all the time. I hate putting out phone calls and negotiating and all that, so
I'm bad about this.
Don't do it.
I have had the same car insurance people for my whole adult life,
so
and I don't want to deal with it. But that brings up another thing. Like, you can shop around and try to find deals, but all of that requires work. And I think so much of this, and we'll probably talk more about this, it's a question of how much work, how much energy do I want to spend on this? How much time do I want to spend on this? First, how much am I going to save?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a different answer for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should probably look into other car insurance companies.
I had the energy and the time to go to 3 different gas stations to save $3, but to put in a 3-minute phone call to save potentially hundreds. I'm like, nope.
God forbid I have to talk on the phone. That's terrible. I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah. I'm starting to sweat just thinking about calling the insurance companies. So we got to move on here.
It's the worst. Nobody wants to. Let us know if you've done this, because how do you do this without
Coach Ben and I through this process? All right, so this also happened early on in budgeting, and we're still doing this one, is figuring out the groceries category. Mm-hmm. Groceries is just its own budgeting beast. I mean, we could do an entire episode, maybe 5 episodes on groceries. But I realized early on that if I could just dial this category in a little bit more, I'm going to save a lot of money. And so right away for me, it was a little bit of couponing because I did see a return with that. And the big thing was just steady shopping days. So every Saturday, that's what it became for me, and always have a list. So I had that meal planning aspect of it. And right away, I just was able to kind of get into this consistent range that we spent on groceries every week, and then I was able to plan for that.
Yeah, it takes time, and this is probably one of the best examples of that time and energy spent versus money saved kind of thing. Because I mean, Ernie, my family, we do a lot on the groceries front, still do, and I can't take any credit at all for it because it's 100% Caitlin, my wife, who manages this. Actually, we have a blog about it.
What?
It's called, it's from a while ago, but it was called our $298 grocery bill for a family of 4.
Oh.
And we're now at $350 for, and no, it was with the family of 5 now, I think. Actually, I think it was 5 then. Anyways, we'll put the link in the description for that one if you guys want to check it out. See how we plan our groceries. But it's a lot, definitely. It's not for everybody, but boy, really careful planning and having a really solid list can definitely save you a lot of money for sure.
Yeah. Now, I thought when you said blog, I thought you and Caitlin actually created and managed your own separate blog. You're talking about a post on the YNAB blog. Got it. Yes, I did read
I'm sorry.
that.
Yeah. We'll post that below for you guys if you want to see our crazy setup. It's good. I think a lot of people could benefit from it for sure. But like I said, it's a question of how much energy and how much time you want to put into it versus how much you think you can save.
Yeah, we could say so much more about groceries, but we only have so much time for this particular episode. We'll just keep moving on, knowing I'm sure we'll be back to this topic at some point. Okay, now I said that I hate negotiating, but I actually did negotiate a bill down. So the situation was I went in, got an eye exam. I thought it was covered, and I got the bill, and it wasn't. And so, I mean, instantly, I was like, oh my goodness, that is a lot of money, and I wasn't expecting this. And so, of course, I went to Slack. I think it was in our personal finance channel, and I just mentioned this, and people said, you got to call, just call them, and, they'll work with you kind of thing. And same situation, instantly started sweating, like, I don't want to do this. I hate negotiating. But it was really, really easy because I just told them the truth. Hey, I thought this was covered. I wasn't expecting this is a pretty large amount for an eye vision bill right now for me. And they just gave me a reduced rate.
Wow.
I mean,
so just ask.
I just asked. And I was just super nice about it, and it worked. And so I know there's people that do that for pretty much every bill, right? They figure everything is negotiable, and a lot of times it ends up being, and save a lot of money that way.
I mean, this is one thing I'm thinking about doing right now because we had a series of medical situations in my family, but everything's fine. Everybody's good. But we've had some expenses, and I need to call the hospital because we had to, anyways, it was the whole thing, but everything's fine. But I need to call the hospital and be like, can I have an itemized bill? Because they sent us a bill, and I'm just like, I don't know what this is for, And so I feel like if I call and just be like, can you itemize this? It might, there might be some things that might come off. We'll see. Okay. But that's one thing I've been thinking about a little bit. So I think, things like that. Just call. You can question a bill. It's okay. I think that's one thing that's really good to think about sometimes.
And then the last one that I could think of, I didn't do this a whole lot, was homemade solutions. So I experimented with making our own laundry detergent, household cleaners.
That's interesting.
Instead of buying those commercial products, I would save a couple bucks, make it myself. And again, that didn't move the needle, but at the time, it was part of that fun game. I'm like, hey, I'm saving money here.
Yeah.
This feels like I'm doing something right. But I didn't keep it up.
What I'm hearing there is like sometimes even if it's something that isn't really going to move the needle that much, it's only going to save you a few bucks, it might be worth doing just to build your own confidence.
Yeah, that too. Like you said, for you it's kind of like a game, but I think even for others it could feel like a game, or it could just feel like I need to do something to kind of prove to myself that I can do this. Yep. Like I can find ways to cut back if I need to, and that confidence makes you have a little more wiggle room, I think, when you're making decisions, because hey, there's lots of options. Like you don't, like if you have a expense come up or something that you want or that you need, you're like, I don't have a choice. I have to get this, right? And then you kind of just throw all the decision making out the window because you feel like you have to. If you have these skills of ways to cut back, you can be like, you know what? Actually, I do have options. Maybe I don't have to use a credit card for this.
I could go to the household solutions, or I could go to the $1 coupons off gas, or any number huge list of things. And you might just open your mind a little bit to finding other solutions to solve financial problems besides using a credit card or some other debt tool.
Yeah, that is a great point. Forcing ourselves to get creative. I like that.
Yeah. And so, like, even if you don't think it's going to move the needle, maybe try some of these things just for a little while, just to kind of prove to yourself that you can be creative. Yeah. You know?
And you might find that they start snowballing. You know, because once I was in that money saving mentality, well, then I was trying to do it in all these other little areas. Like I was just thinking, I'd go to restaurants, order something, but I wouldn't order a drink, right? Because I'm saving money. So how else can I save money? Let's get a water instead of getting a soda or some other drink, right?
Yeah. And, that's huge right there. Yeah. I mean, talk about that, like, also budgeting calories and stuff. I feel like we drink all our calories, you know? So that's another example too. If you just cut, one thing at a restaurant, you save a lot. Not just in money.
And it made me think of another example where when my boys were in elementary school, we lived, I think it was like half a mile from the school. And I would always walk and pick them up and take them. And I actually calculated because, there were a lot of parents that were in our neighborhood that were driving their kids to school and picking them up. I'm like, how much am I actually saving by walking? And I think over the course of like 180 school days, it was somewhere like around, I don't know, between 50 and $80 maybe.
Wow.
So it's, not much, but
it adds up.
But again, it was like, it put something in my head that like, nope, I'm saving money by walking, and it made me feel good.
I love that. Well, should I do a lightning round, or do you want to talk about some other takeaways from that?
No, that's all that I have. So why don't you get into some other ways that you've been cutting? You have a good list here.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have a good name for this. The name I have is kind of gross. I'm going to call it the shaving technique.
Yeah. As soon as I read that, I'm like, it doesn't look like you're shaving.
No, I'm definitely not shaving right now. I need to do a trim, I think. But not right now. But I'm talking about shaving categories here. Okay. So I need a better term for this. But basically, if you're trying to cut spending this is especially if you're looking at your budget and you're trying to put more on debt or go to another goal or save. I think one thing it's a little bit less painful way to cut spending is just to go through your discretionary categories and just like take off $5 here, take off $10 here, don't do like any big cuts, but lots of little cuts. And then before you'll know it, you'll have the, $50 you needed for that savings goal or whatever. I find this is really, really helpful because you don't feel it so much. So that's one thing I really like to do a lot.
So that's something you're still doing?
Especially when I'm right in the budget. Yeah, in fact, I did it recently because I had some unexpected bills that came up, and I didn't want to dip into the emergency fund, and so we cut back a few different places. So that's one example there. What else? Well, groceries I've already talked about. Lots of planning to do. I mean, my wife Caitlin, you can ask her, like you can go up to her and be like, "Hey, how much does a can of corn cost?" And she'll tell you, like, to the she's like a whiz, right? And so she'll do the planning, and we'll talk about what we're going to eat, and she'll make a list, and she'll even have the prices that she estimates next to it.
Okay.
And then when we're at the store, we'll literally go in and put in, okay, well, the can of corn costs 25 cents more than we estimated, so we'll put like a 25 there, and we'll keep going until when we get to the register, we know exactly how much everything's going to cost versus what we expected. And if there's if it's more, then we'll put something back. Or if sometimes it's less, like we ended up spending less than we thought, and we'll go buy the fancy cheese or something, right? But so that level of planning can be really powerful especially if you're really trying to cut back on groceries quite a bit. And again, more of that in the blog if you want. I even have a screenshot from our little spreadsheet that we use there.
Of course.
So you can check that out.
Everybody,
it's actually easier now.
Spreadsheet.
It's actually, absolutely. It's actually easier now because since the pandemic started, we've been doing grocery pickup, and we just kind of kept doing it. And it's very helpful when you have a bunch of kids because you don't have to bring them into the store.
Absolutely.
But it also helps with the planning because it's a little easier to do that process when you're actually in front of your computer instead of in the store. Also, we often shop at multiple stores, so some things are cheaper in one place, or you might have the brands that you want in another place. So we'll go to multiple stores. We go to Aldi, and we might go to Walmart, and we might go to Kroger. So it depends. It's not always the same every week or every month, but we will shop at different stores when we can. So much more we can say about groceries, but I think I'll leave it at that for now. One thing I remember, this is a fun little story here. We made a huge cut to dining out one time, and it did not go well. Let me tell you. I think this is one category where everybody feels like they can go to when they start budgeting. I mean, we hear it almost universally. Everybody's like, "Oh, I cut dining out, and I have a ton more money for dad or for another goal." And one thing that we wanted to do, this was a couple years back, we wanted to give a lot more, and so we cut back a lot. We cut back lots of different categories, but dining out really got the axe. And I think it was because we just kind of had an idea in our head, like dining out is bad. You hear from like a lot of the personal finance stuff out there. It's like, oh, never eat out. And I get why. It's because so many people overspend there.
Yeah.
But I think that got in our heads, and we cut it like in half or something crazy. So for 10 months thereafter, we proceeded to massively overspend our dining out category because we didn't really actually cut back the spending. We just cut back the budgeting, right? And I remember we were just so frustrated about it, and I just realized this actually is important to us.
Yes.
And it's okay that it's important to us. And so we found some money from other places. We're still able to give more, but we've raised dining out back up. And I think we've raised it several times since then because it's just great. I love it.
Yeah.
So fine.
We have a very similar story where we've also tried to cut back. And it was early in, our parenting season where the boys were really young and going out to eat wasn't always a super fun experience, but we were still doing it. We're like, we need to cut back a little bit. So we did. And then as time went on, we realized we actually really need this and want this. And so we increased it slowly back up.
Yeah, that's okay. But I do think that there's a lot of value in maybe doing a sprint where you cut a category like this.
Yes.
I mean, we have, we recommend this. We have the 34-day reset. Check the link in the description. This is a spending challenge for you. And one of the rules of that challenge, no eating out for 34 days. We're like, go hard on this and reset your thinking on eating out and maybe try to get creative. And lots of people have tried this and it's really made a big difference. I don't think we would ever say to anybody, you're never allowed to eat out for the rest of your life, right?
Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't say it to myself, so I'm not going to say it to anybody else. But I think it could be really powerful to do a little challenge like that, cut spending in one area or another completely for 1 month or 1 week or a couple weeks.
Okay, confession.
So,
I tried the 34-day challenge back in January. I made it 1 week and I quit. It was because of eating out.
It's okay.
Because
it's tough.
I didn't put that challenge on my family. So they were still eating out every Friday.
That's
and then
hard.
I would be
hard.
preparing my own meal. And I'm like, no, this is stupid, Ernie. I made it 1 week
hard.
and I
if you
quit.
don't have the buy-in from the whole family, it can be pretty tough. And when you got teenagers, I mean, you're never going to get it, right?
Right. It's a turkey sandwich.
It's just not going to happen. But I mean, for some families, maybe it could,
Yeah.
But so it might not be for everyone all the time, but definitely, or maybe you'd be like, you know what, 34 days is too long, but maybe I'll go for a week like Ernie and see if I can do that.
Okay, try for 2.
That's okay. It's all about managing expectations, Ernie. Right? Maybe try for 2. Another way that I've cut spending is, I mean, I don't know if this is cutting spending, it's more about not spending, really, is just to let money sit around for a while before you purchase something. I have done this several times where I've saved up for something, and the money is in the category to buy the thing, and I just don't buy it for a while. I'm one of those people that like feels like they have to research the heck out of anything that's more than like $100 purchase, you know? So I think I'll do that. And sometimes very interesting things happen in that time period between when I fund the category and when I actually buy the thing. Sometimes I'll buy it and that's cool. But other times I'll find like a big sale and I'll get the thing way cheaper. But more often than not, well, maybe not more often than not, but very often I find that I actually realize I don't even want that thing, you know? And I think there's something really cool here. If you let the money sit around for a while, especially if it's very naturally just kind of sitting in a category and you're not like super eager to buy it, you might start to think, you know what, maybe I don't need that thing as much as I thought. In the heat of the moment, when I was budgeting, I was all for it. And then later on, after I funded that goal, I cooled off a little bit and I find I didn't want it.
So generally,
sometimes I'll take that money and move it somewhere else.
Generally, what is a while? Is it 24 hours? Is it a week? Are you waiting a month?
It depends on the thing. Maybe like a couple weeks or a month.
Okay.
I'll tell you, let me give you an example. I wanted to go buy a chainsaw because I've got a lot of trees around my house and I like to have fires inside and outside the house, not in the fireplace, of course. And so I wanted to cut it, like trees would fall, branches fall. I wanted to cut it up with a chainsaw, bring it inside. And so I wanted to buy one. But then, I don't know, I started funding it and I was realizing, I don't know if I really want this thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine about it and he's like, oh, well, you know, Ben, you gotta get like headgear. You gotta get a helmet. You gotta get ear things and you gotta get chaps, right?
Yeah.
These like special chaps you wear so you don't cut your legs off. And I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. And that's even more money, right? And he's like, don't chainsaw without chaps on or you're going to cut your leg off. And I'm like, okay, appreciate the advice. And, cause it is super dangerous. And I was like, this is even more money. And I was complaining about it. And my buddy was like, well, you know, you've got a really nice leaf blower and I need a leaf blower and I have a chainsaw. So, and he lives right down the street from me. So he's like, how about this? You can use my chainsaw anytime you want. If I can use your leaf blower anytime I want. And I said, that's perfect. And we made the deal and I didn't buy the chainsaw. I used that money for something else.
Yes.
Right? So I think sometimes if you just let the money sit around for a while, you might find opportunities to do something different. Especially if you, and this is also a benefit of not using debt, right? Of actually waiting to save money for something, because you might find in that process of saving money, you don't really want the thing so much.
Yeah.
And otherwise you might have just spent it on impulse and then you're paying it back and you're like, oh, actually, I don't really want this thing, but you still have to pay it back, you know?
And I just love that other idea in there that you don't have to buy it. You know, you get creative. You borrow someone else's, you lend out something of yours. You can rent something. You know, you don't always have to buy. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Probably the biggest single thing I've done to cut spending is went down to one car.
Oh my!
For my family.
I bet.
Yeah, it was a big move for us. But you know what? My wife works from home. I work from home. My kids are in elementary school. I can walk them to school. They're really close. You don't really need a second car right now. And we realized that kind of the hard way because my beloved 1995 Toyota Camry bit the dust one state inspection day, right? It was like, this thing is, you can't drive on the road with this thing anymore without paying a ton of money, way more than it's worth. And so we had to give it up. And we started saving for a car. We went about 10 months saving for a new car. And it was just like what I was just talking about. We started saving and then we got about 10 months and we had some money for a new car. I don't think it was quite enough but we were pretty close. And we realized, you know, we've been going 10 months with one car and it's been fine, right?
Yeah, you adapted.
Right, and we adapted. And so I realized, okay, let's use that money for something else. And we did. And ever since then, that was a couple years ago, maybe actually I think 3 years ago now, we haven't had a second car and it's been fine.
Boy.
Now, I do feel like I'm starting to feel the grind a little bit now because my kids are getting a little older, thinking about doing some activities, you know. So this isn't for everybody, for sure. But it might be something to consider. Sometimes you got to make some big moves. And think about all the things I've saved. I mean, taxes on a car, maintenance on that car.
So much.
So many things.
I wish you
right?
could put a
Gas.
spreadsheet for that and created one.
Right.
I mean,
That's what I should have done. I should have just tracked. I guess I could just take all my expenses on my current car and double it over the past 3 years, and that would
Yes.
that's what it would have been. So yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. So that's big things like that are something to consider, and I think it's given us the cash flow to make other big decisions too. So it's good. All right. Well, I think we're just about at time here for you, Ernie. Should we wrap up for us?
yeah. I was just thinking, to kind of wrap this whole thing up, it sounds like when it comes to cutting expenses, you got to pick something, you got to do it in a way that works for you, right? I mean, we both chose ways that just naturally flowed with our personality and our circumstances. And we chose things that we actually even enjoyed doing,
Yeah.
I think that's important. And for some of those things, they were seasonal, right? Like, I'm going to cut expenses this way for this stretch of time, but then, I'm going to pull that back and get back to almost normal living.
Yeah. I love that.
So,
Yeah. So look into your budget, see if there's some things that maybe you can do. But don't kill yourself. Just give it a try. And if it works for you, if that's great. If not, that's all right too. But, until then, I guess we'll say happy budgeting. Oh, wait, but before we do that, we do have
YNAB Wins.
YNAB Wins. So YNAB Wins is when we look through the comments of past videos and we find a win that some of you guys have shared. And this week we have a couple people that we wanted to shout out. Alicia B wrote in on our Saving Money in YNAB video. She said, my mindset on the savings account shifted when I decided that the savings category were savings with intention. I love that. The intention may be a less stressful emergency, paying income taxes, a vacation, or the internet bill that's due next week. And I think this ties in so well because if you're trying to cut spending, you're a lot more motivated if you have really intentional savings goals like Alicia has there.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's so cool.
Great job, Alicia. My win came from Leah on the YNAB for Small Business episode. Leah said, this video was timely for us. Been using YNAB since fall of 2017, and after we bought a house, I created a big cash flow problem for our small business, as well as family budget. This week, I have been completely remodeling my budget. I am now aware of how bad our business cash flow has become. The result is I'm getting creative about earning my own income so I can wham our debt and eventually have a profit. So probably not a real fun realization, but that has created some creativity. And so the win there is now they have this new path going forward, and that's exciting.
Yeah, I love that. That's a cool. Yeah, I like that idea of, sometimes a hardship or a difficult realization can lead to some creative solutions, and you could almost end up better off in the end than you were before. So I think that's really cool.
Nice.
All right, Ernie. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
As always.
It's been fun talking to all the budget nerds out there. If you have a YNAB win, let us know below. Maybe we'll shout you out in a future episode. Until then, we'll see you all later.
Happy budgeting,
Bye.
folks.
Happy budgeting.